Hi, this is Dr. Goldkamp and welcome back to another episode of the Keto Naturopath on YouTube. So I wanted to go further on detailing why I believe there's actually no maximum protein you can have on a protein-sparing modified fast. That's quite on the face of it, kind of an irresponsible thing to say, but let me back that up. So let me start with my numbers and I'll tell you why that's the case and we'll get into it, okay? Because I want you to be informed so you do this. This is the easiest thing to do, but I want you to do it in an informed way so you know what you're doing, because there's a lot of ignorant statements out there about this, and this has been popular for many decades, certainly since the early 60s and probably 100 years before that, okay? So here we go. Let's go back to my chart, which is right here. And we're saying that I'm 5'10", so I'm 70 inches, and that my average ideal weight is 162 pounds. Technically, I'm, for the most part, about 155. It's my high school weight since doing this. And my total grams of protein per day should be 162, and I got that because that's 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight, right? We looked into how you could figure out ideal body weight and so on and so forth. But the idea was if you break it down into, 5 snacks in essence, 20%, a fifth, 20%, a fifth of all your protein per day, you could actually optimize your protein sparing fast to actually stimulate more muscle growth than you would if you ate it all in 1 meal or 2 meals. So the more you split it up and have at least 30 grams of protein, in this specific case, 30 grams of protein in any one sitting, whole food servings of protein, that's the chicken, the meat, the fish, whatever you're having, okay? Not a canister of amino acids, not a canister of collagen. Okay, and that amount varies, of course, and I have that all calculated out. And this is exactly right out of the course that we do monthly for with people who go through a protein-sparing modified fast. Some people do it for a whole month, sticking to this. Others follow what we generally recommend, which is 3 or 4 days per week, because most people are coming from a standard American diet, a high-fat processed food and a high-fat and a high-carb processed food diet, and therefore this would be a dramatic change for them, and it would be pretty problematic if we make that kind of sudden change, as I've mentioned before. Okay, so those are my numbers. Now I show you what is conventionally recommended. So what is conventionally recommended are these numbers. This is your body weight. So let's say you're 100, and this just says reference body weight. And this is absurd because if you're 200 pounds overweight, so we're going to assume that this is your ideal body weight, just for a little apples to apples, and you're roughly 160 pounds. Well, here it says that you should eat anywhere between 87 to 123 grams of protein. So even at its maximum, it's already higher than my recommendation. It's already lower than my recommendation. That's an average of, let's see, it's 15, that's really about 102 grams of protein for a person who weighs 160 pounds. I find that off, and I'm not going to go into these other columns because they're even more absurd. But this comes out of the 1920s, and this comes out of the calculation way back when they were figuring out how to do the classic ketogenic diet under Russell Wilder. So this is not new or been kept up. It's a conservative number, and I think it contributes to, it's a hypoprotein number. And the reason they say it shouldn't be higher, because in the context of the standard American diet, high fat, high carb, so you're having high processed industrial oils, that's corn oil, vegetable oil, soy oil, did I leave something out? All the canola oil, all the processed industrial oils, that's your high fat portion. And you're having high refined processed carbohydrates. Those are two disastrous combinations that will make for a variety of illnesses, in the very least diabetes, which leads to all sorts of other illnesses and disorders, cancer and various cancers, among other things. So in that context, yeah, it's not a good idea to have more protein. And that's certainly not a protein-sparing modified fast. It's simply having more protein. Stupid idea. But if you're doing a protein-sparing modified fast, as we've talked about, then you can have a much higher. So I wanted to compare it to show you that, yeah, look, my numbers are higher. Oh my gosh. And there's plenty of research behind what I do as well. This isn't me just making it up in my garage, okay? All right, let me go to now, when people talk about having too much, is that they will go to wondering, well, how can you have so much protein? Aren't you recommending something dangerous? Well, no. Besides what I just said, here's another reason, is that this is your daily, this chart here is about protein versus your basal metabolic rate. So let me explain a little bit. Your basic metabolic rate, 100% here, is that you're eating what your BMR is, and you can look that up. But let's say it's 2,000 calories. That's what they use. If you've noticed all your labels in the back of the label, they say for the average 2,000 calorie. My BMR is really around 1650, but you're eating 100% of that, okay? So to eat 100% of your BMR, it says at 10% protein, that's easy to do. If you increase your protein, you can also initially increase the amount you eat. But as you continue to increase protein percent in your diet, you'll find that you can't eat that much. And if you were to have your diet that's not even 100%, not even 100% protein, so this is less than a protein-sparing modified fast, you can barely have 50%. Why do they say that? You can have, as if there's a limitation. No, it's not a limitation. It's you're satiated. You feel full. And this is the secret of a protein-sparing modified fast, which is really not a secret. Anybody knows about it, is you are satisfied. You're not hungry. And if you're not hungry, you're not going to eat. And so that's one reason why people lose weight, is because their appetite drops. As they increase their amount of protein, whole food sources of protein, their appetite drops, and it makes it very easy for them to eat a hypocaloric daily diet, which means they're going to be losing weight because they need to burn those calories. The other reason that people lose weight easily on a PSMF is because there's a cost to digesting protein, which is far higher, a caloric cost, far higher than digesting carbohydrates, far higher than digesting fats. So you had a donut for carbohydrates of every 200 calories that's a processed food, by the way, it would be 10%, right? So your cost is 10%, 20 calories for every 200 calories. And the cost for fats is almost nothing. It's 3%. Out of 200 calories, 6 calories. Out of 200 calories of protein, that drumstick or your pork or your fish or your chicken, it's going to cost you 30%. So it's a far higher cost, and your net amount. So some people interpret this as saying you can eat a lot more and gain a lot less. It's true, because you're burning calories by merely digesting protein. So your appetite drops. It's more calorically expensive to digest protein, only protein. Those are the two secrets of why you lose weight. And so, but I also want to say that why is it that people are afraid, so to say, of eating too much protein? Well, the first thing is, in this regard, is that they say, well, it's bad for my kidneys. In fact, I have a neighbor who just said that the other day. He's going to have a party and says, what do you guys eat? Meat, fish, eggs, whatever. He goes, oh, okay. He said, my doctor said that I couldn't eat that way. I said, why is that? Because I have kidney stones. Well, if you have a kidney predisposition, you have a history of kidney stones, then you have to go carefully. I don't think it's impossible, but you're in a separate category. But anybody who does not have a pre-existing kidney problem, like kidney stones, which is the dominant problem people have for kidneys, there has not been a problem with the protein-sparing modified fast. It's not a kidney problem unless you already have a kidney problem coming into this. Then you'd have to approach it differently. Another podcast at a different time, video. Okay, so here's how we know that. This is labs of a lot of people that have come through our programs, and it's just a spreadsheet of the lab, so they're anonymous. And what we measure is their GFR, glomerular filtration rate. We also measure their creatinine. And these two together are going to tell me how their kidneys are doing. Are they okay? And so for every person except one person who had a hypofunctioning, a low functioning GFR, this person was on 28 different supplements. Once we removed the supplements, retested them, it became normal. So a word on the wise and over supplementing yourself regardless of how many articles you read. And the other thing, we have kind of a belt and suspenders approach. Another redundant test is we look at creatinine. How is that? So when your creatinine is high, it usually means your kidneys are slow functioning. So you put these two together, you get a reading of how their kidneys are doing. And then it's a go. I'm not saying, so the people in our program do not take this. Other programs, not everybody needs to take this, but this is how you remove all doubt as to, can I do a protein sparing modified fast or not? Well, how are your kidneys doing? If you've never had a problem, then it should be fine. The other question that comes up is about kidney stones. Since kidney stones are the number one way for number one problem people have, I thought it was worth going over. So the types of kidney stones, you have basically 4 types, but I'm just going to talk about one. I'll tell you why. So types of kidney stones: calcium oxalate stones, calcium phosphate stones. Between these two, they make up 99.9% of all kidney stones. Calcium oxalate stones make up about 85%. So this is the one we're going to talk about. The calcium phosphate, you pretty much have to have a predisposing kidney problem already. You were probably born with it and have a urinary tract problem. I don't mean urinary tract infection only, but you already knew you had a problem. And you get tested for that. But the calcium oxalate stones, which everybody has that has kidney stones, is a plant-based kidney stone problem. What? A plant-based kidney stone problem? Oxalates are highest in veggies. They're almost non-existent in meat and organ meats. And so the highest oxalate plants you could have, you have kale, you have spinach, also almond milk. Those are all very popular things. So people get a lot of oxalates. And think of oxalates as, I think it is fiberglass, that I'm having a little fiberglass with my meal. I haven't had it for about 8 or 9 years. But that's what oxalates are. And so they kind of shred your intestine or make your gut feel unpleasant. They also make your kidneys feel unpleasant. They have to be processed. They go out with your urine. So once you remove them from your diet, you remove really the possibility of getting calcium oxalate stones. The other way to minimize, to remove the possibility of having kidney stones is to drink plenty of fluids. Water, coffee, fluids. Make it a non-sugar drink, preferably water, coffee, tea, not soda. And there you go. And not sweet drinks. So there you go. So that's how you avoid that. That's usually the issue of, oh my gosh, it's bad on my kidneys. And that's the difference of why I'm saying you can have a lot more protein. Break it up over 5 times per day if you want to optimize. You don't have to do that. Optimize weight loss, optimize muscle mass. And that's a big difference. Okay, on to the next one I'm going to show you is how to take your protein sparing fast even further. How do you then add something, I'm not going to tell you what it is, add something that will even further increase the efficiency and the benefits of the protein sparing modified fast. Till then, take care.